The Winter Haunting. Chapter 1. Winter Solstice Arrival. I stepped off the bus in Winterfold, the small town where my childhood memories lingered like a ghostly fog on an autumn evening. It had been 12 months since I left for college. 12 long months that had seen me grow from a lost boy to a man struggling to make sense of his past and find solace in distant academia. My 20th birthday found me returning home, compelled by the irresistible pull of the longest night of the year, a time when the darkness seemed to stretch on forever. As I trudged through the knee-deep deep snow towards my family's abandoned cabin at the edge of town, the biting wind carved out a path behind me like an unseen companion. The cabin stood cloaked in shadows, its weathered boards seeming to swallow the fading light of day. The air carried whispers on its breath, soft murmurs that sounded like a chorus of forgotten voices. My heart thumped against my ribcage as I reached for the old key, unlocking the door that creaked with an unfamiliar groan. Inside, silence enveloped me, the musty scent of forgotten years enveloping me like a familiar shroud. Unpacking my duffel bag, I caught a glimpse of a white envelope clutched between two weathered logs on the wooden table, addressed to me in an elegant script that seemed to dance across the parchment with each flicker of light from the single bulb overhead. I recognized my name before recognizing the handwriting. It was Dad's. It had been years since we last spoke, and I hadn't seen him or Mum since I left. After a deep breath, I ripped open the envelope, the paper crackling with age. The words within spoke of an unexplained phenomenon that took place on this same night 15 years ago. A night when he went missing along with my childhood best friend Jake. A series of cryptic clues was etched at the bottom of the page. The whispers begin as darkness falls. Seek truth in the forest's heart. The shadows hide what once wasn't there. A thrill coursed through me, tempered by a shiver as I read on. An old journal belonging to Dad was hidden somewhere outside. Determined, I bundled up against the cold and ventured into the night, flashlight in hand. My eyes scanned the frozen landscape, tracing the path that led behind the cabin towards the woods. Leaves crunched beneath my boots. The wind seemed to carry those same unintelligible whispers closer with each step, as if beckoning me deeper. A rustle within a thicket drew my attention, leaves parting for something large and dark. I aimed my light at the spot, but there was nothing. With a deep breath, I approached cautiously, lifting the beam higher. I found a tattered journal half buried beneath the undergrowth. It belonged to my father, his meticulous handwriting filled with entries that described an unearthly glow emanating from the heart of the forest. As the night wore on and the first stars pricked at the sky, a strange light began to seep through the pines, pulsing with an ethereal glow reminiscent of fireflies trapped in ice. I followed the light's trajectory, my pulse quickening. In the clearing, it pulsed brighter still, casting an unnatural luminescence upon the snow. I approached cautiously, heart pounding in tandem with the wind. The journal spoke of a ritual, but what kind and by whom remained shrouded. Fueled by curiosity, I took another step into the cold, then another. The light grew more intense, bathing me in its eerie glow as I realized it was not fireflies after all. The air seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy, a presence that watched from behind every tree or drifted just out of sight. Shadows shifted at the edge of perception, drawing near before retreating once more. A primal fear stirred within my chest as I turned to face the forest's dark depths, senses on high alert. An inescapable sense of being observed settled over me. I returned to the cabin, devouring Dad's words by the firelight until the night wore thin and sleep finally claimed me. nightmares dancing at the edge of consciousness. In the morning, frost glazed the windows. I ventured back into the forest, journal in hand, seeking answers to the mystery that had haunted us all these years. The light was gone, but a set of footprints marred the pristine snow. Man-sized and heavy-footed, leading deeper. Following them led me to an overgrown clearing strewn with branches and shattered wood. A faint trail of blackened earth hinted at where they had traversed into darkness. I crouched beneath an ancient birch tree, tracing the charred marks. They were ritualistic symbols, reminiscent of those in Dad's accounts. The rustling leaves intensified as I stood up to depart. Returning to the cabin, I pored over the journal until night fell once more, each page revealing the events surrounding Jake's disappearance and my father's desperate search for his son. In the flickering glow cast by lanterns, shadows moved just beyond the edge of vision, drawing closer still. My breath fogged the window as a gust whipped through, threatening to extinguish the flames. As I read on, ice crystals began forming outside. Not snowflakes, but delicate icicles hanging from branches like skeletal fingers, each one shimmering in an otherworldly glow. Shadows detached themselves from the trees and merged with the frost, morphing into figures that bore a sinister intent. Their forms seemed to watch as I left the cabin, bound for their heart, the pounding silence once more. With flashlight held high, I treaded the familiar path, pulse hammering against my eardrums. In the clearing, footprints disappeared near an ancient cedar, and the air hung heavy with something long buried. As night gave way to dawn's first blush of color, I found a single page pinned to its bark. Jake's name was scrawled across it in blood. My friend, my brother, or something else entirely. Panic clawed at my chest as darkness claimed me once more. Chapter 2. Frozen Tracks. In the days that followed, winter took hold, and so did my obsession with solving this riddle. I pored over Dad's accounts and Jake's journal, both filled with a mix of wonder and dread as they described these occurrences on the longest night of every year. It had become clear the cult was involved. There was no other explanation for such ritualistic markings. I pieced together their cryptic messages, each leading me to an abandoned lot on the outskirts of town. Frost that encased symbols adorned the ground, a macabre dance of arcane signs and symbols carved into the earth. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision as I approached the site under cover of nightfall. A sense of unease had taken up residence in me, refusing to abate. At dawn's first light, the wind bore an unseen stench, something almost like burnt bone or flesh. Inhaling sharply, I photographed each symbol before leaving them for what might come next. My mind was a jumble of dread and curiosity. Where did they lead? The images were transferred to a camera with film long exposed. The lot silence was broken by the distant rumble of a car engine. I followed it, dreading what I'd find in this quiet town at the wrong hour. A single vehicle waited beneath the lone street lamp. Black paint job, tinted windows. Utterly still. With every step towards that doorless sedan, doubt warred with determination. The driver to side window slid down to reveal a face I once knew as well as my own. Jake's skin sallow and stretched, eyes black as coal. "Friend," he rasped in a husky voice before slamming the door shut behind me. "Jake, we've been searching for you both so long." I fumbled for keys but found only the flashlight. "You can't know what happened out here." A new face materialized. Jake's features twisted, distorted by shadowy growths. Eyes blacker than coal stared back with no recognition in sight. Shadows rippled across his skin like an ink spill that spread and pulsed. They took him. I insisted. Jake spoke of a man with eyes alight in the dark. In hushed tones, he recounted being taken in by this cult, forced to witness something so terrible it should have left me blind or mad. They returned us both, Jake said, their eyes aglow like lanterns from hell itself. My friend's gaze slid away, never meeting my eyes once more before the door thudded shut with finality. I pounded against the window, but there was no response. Heart racing, I ran back to the sedan and tried the door again. This time it swung open easily. A hollow click resounded from within as I slid into the driver's seat. It roared to life. I drove through snow, Jake's sporadic mutterings laced with anguish and dread echoing back. The darkness his eyes. In the distance, an abandoned church loomed against sapphire sky. In its cryptic windows, a single flame flickered, pulsing like Jake's distorted face. My skin prickled as we approached. The vehicle halted before the edifice, door opening by way of a ghostly hand. "Welcome home," rasped Jake's voice without his voice. Shadows enveloped me when I entered. In the pulpit stood a robed figure with features obscured save for eyes alight. Black orbs that seemed to absorb light itself. It spoke of the hunger and what it craves. The hunger had taken my friend, and we were here now. Chapter 3. Midnight Revelations. Beneath an oppressive sky and those nightmarish eyes, the figure revealed a hooded figure carrying an offering, something heavy wrapped in canvas. As I watched, dread congealed in my gut. The hunger stirs. It rasped with malevolent intent before lugging its burden up an iron staircase to a secret room. My friend's voice rang out from above, a wail of terror as the door clanged shut behind him and robed figures appeared on either side. Faces obscured beneath hoods. I climbed those stairs in time to see them raise their heads in unison, eyes ablaze with an unnatural light. I spoke at last. "You're not taking us." My declaration fell flat amidst a silent tableau. Jake's form was dragged through the doorway ahead of me. I followed into an underground chamber that felt both ancient and alive, walls pulsing like a living thing. In the flickering light, robed figures parted to reveal a dais where a single chair sat atop a crimson altar. My friend lay bound, eyes wide with terror. The hooded figure's chant began, words I'd never heard before, an incantation woven from ancient tongues. Their voices joined in haunting unison, weaving a spell that felt like claws tearing at my flesh. I was next, bound to that chair, suspended above the pulsating heart of this underground room. An unseen force closed around me as the chant reached its crescendo. In an explosion of sound and movement, they vanished into darkness. I fell, face first onto the floorboards, dazed. As vision cleared, robed figures were nowhere in sight. Only Jake, still bound above me. "They've returned," he whispered, voice muffled by the hood. In time with the first light of dawn, we were freed and borne away to an old car. The driver wore a hoodie. As they vanished into the morning haze, I recognized it. My father's vehicle. The familiar leather creaked beneath me. The engine roared to life, and we drove in silence until snow-crusted trees flashed by outside. "I was taken first," he said, voice raw as the cold air biting at our faces. When shadows fell across us once more, I recognized our destination. A place last seen through bloodshot eyes during those long years of searching. My childhood home. In the foyer's light, he hung on his feet, skin marred and stretched like their victim. My scream shattered the stillness as the front door swung shut behind me. In time with every step, a foot came down atop him before thudding into the floorboards. I reached the threshold to find myself staring up at them. Above, shadows writhed and spread across Jake's skin. An unnatural hunger. I'd never seen anything like it as it seared him from the inside out. His form crumpled. The door behind us slammed shut. With every step, their hunger seemed to unfurl in this place they called home now. I stumbled back, but something gripped my arm with icy fingers, pulling me upward once more. A life of shadows and night that had consumed him long before he spoke again. "I want you." I felt myself pulled up by the collar until we hung suspended. Shadows lapped at my skin like living darknesses hungry for their fill. "Dad." A hooded head nodded in response. I recognized those eyes as our father's. Eyes alight with a hunger that should have been unrecognizable save for the blood on his face. His tongue licked at my chin before it slid to my neck and throat, then back, the hunger sated. Their father hung dead, dead-eyed in his room. Shadows had taken him long ago. They'd killed him,